Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. This week's guest is Chris MacDonald, who is the owner of CPM Pipelines. Thanks for joining me, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, you and I have met each other. We've done some live sewer roundtable episodes, and you have been known to spark a little, controversy, but not in a bad way, in a good way, because our industry needs it. So before we get into all that, I want to learn a little bit more about you and how you started CPM Pipelines, how you actually got in the industry. Let's start there.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I got into the industry back in the late 90s. When I was in school, I was looking to find an opportunity to get into like an industrial sales type position. So I had a friend in college whose dad was a regional manager for U.S. Pipe and Foundry out of Birmingham. So when I got out of school, I took some other sales jobs, kind of getting some experience, and then went to my friend's wedding and got a chance to kind of corner his dad for a little bit of time at his wedding down in Dallas. And they happened to have a position coming open in the Kansas City area, which is where I was at the time, doing valve and hydrant sales. So at the time, if you went to work for U.S. Pipe and Foundry, they were typically looking for a sales engineer type person or somebody with like an engineering background, but for the valve and hydrant division, you didn't have to have an engineering background. So I basically pestered his dad and every single one of his salespeople that worked out of the same office that his dad ran, the Southwest Regional Sales Office out of Dallas, until they finally got tired of me bugging them. And I think that's why they finally hired me and gave me an opportunity. So that's how it all started.
That's interesting. My story is kind of similar. I was going after a CEO of, an infrastructure company that did service work. And I kept reaching out to him. The same thing. They were like, oh, fine, we'll visit you. We'll interview you. We'll talk to you. And it was about the grind. That's the first thing they said. They were like, it was your persistence, right? And I think that's kind of going into, obviously, your sales background, and now you're an owner of an infrastructure company, which is amazing. So your drive and passion obviously puts you in this position. And then you obviously did sales for this company for a little while. And then how did you get into CPM Pipelines?
So I worked for U.S. Pipe for about 8 years and covered Kansas City, like Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, covered Michigan for a little bit, and then eventually was over in St. Louis, and they were basically going to close that office. So I was going to have to make a change or do something different. So I reached out to some of my friends in the Southwest who were out here in Phoenix and ended up picking up a position with Hughes at the time, selling water and wastewater, like plant packages to contractors out here in Phoenix. And then that ran its course for about 5 years as the housing market basically crashed. Like I started out here in 2006, and then the housing market crashed shortly thereafter. But since I was doing plant sales and we were building all the water, wastewater treatment plants out here in Phoenix, we kind of trailed behind the housing market about 3 or 4 years. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and it was time to step off that train and find something else to do. So when I first started working for U.S. Pipe, actually, the very first trade show I went to, which was the AWWA annual conference, ACE in Chicago, actually, where you're at. And we were walking around the trade show with one of the guys, Rich Gardner, who I kind of considered one of my mentors beginning in the industry, and we still talk every once in a while today. But we were walking around the trade show, and he's, I'm still trying to figure out like how valves and hydrants work and what the market's like and who I'm supposed to be calling on and all these things you eventually figure out. And he's showing me all these different companies as we're walking around the trade show. And I'm like, why are we looking at all these different companies? And he said, well, the opportunity in this industry is to eventually become a rep. He said, if you want to work for yourself, one of the best ways to do it is to become a manufacturer rep and represent different companies and basically do what we're doing now, except working for yourself. So pretty much 6 months into starting in the industry, that was my goal. My dad had owned his own business, and I always wanted to own my own business. So from that point on, I really was looking to try to figure out a way to best position myself to start my own rep company, which, required a couple of things, right? I mean, you needed a lot of industry knowledge. You need a little bit of money.
Right.
So the reason I took the position with Hughes was to get more experience on the distribution side. So I was selling distributors, so I wanted to kind of learn their side of the business. And then I figured once I learned the distribution side, then I could find an opportunity to start a company as a rep, calling on distributors. But so I found the opportunity with a valve manufacturer at the time that quickly transitioned to something completely different. But the one thing that I looked at industry-wide and really business-wide from some things I learned from my dad was you didn't really want to have your eggs in one basket. So when it came to selling to distributors, we have good relationships with distributors. I sell to distributors to this day, but I didn't really want to have my entire business tied to one specific distributor. So from the start, we sold municipalities direct, we sold contractors direct, we sold distributors. So we sold everybody that was interested in buying products from us. So, there's some good and bad to that. It's kind of like the Walmart thing with a company. So if you're a small business and you land a deal with Walmart, that's fantastic because you go from $100,000 worth of sales maybe to $10 million worth of sales overnight. But at the same time, as soon as they decide they don't like your terms or something about what you're doing, you can go from $10 million in sales right back to $100,000 in sales and be right back where you started. So my goal was always to try to prevent that from happening and kind of spread things out and diversify and do lots of different things. And that kind of led to where we're at now with pressure pipe rehabilitation and pressure pipe rehab systems.
Yeah, that's a great just background for you, just learning how you funneled your way, weaved your way kind of through the industry and learned so much about how it worked, manufacturing side of it, the rep side of it, the distribution side of it. That's important. What was one of the most exciting things you found, when you were selling wastewater water treatment plant upgrades? It sounds like you were doing the construction side, right? Building new infrastructure that way.
I was selling to contractors. So I had like 2 or 3 key contractors that were building plants out here in the Valley. And those were my kind of core customers. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the one thing, on the distribution side, we were selling the entire plant package. So we were selling pipe, valves, fittings, some equipment. When I switched over to become a rep, we were just selling valve packages initially. But what I decided pretty quickly, I had an opportunity to team up with who was my business partner for about 10 years. And that just, I recently bought the company back. But when he came on board and started working with me, his background was pressure pipe inspection. So we had an opportunity really early on to start talking to a company about what's been coined now flexible fabric reinforced pipe, or FFRP. So when we first started talking to them, I wasn't real familiar with it at the time, but my business partner at the time, we walked out of a meeting and he said, there's nothing out there like this in the marketplace right now. And we can bring this to the market and really make a difference and have something unique. So we really started going down that path 100 miles an hour and just kind of set all the valve business on the back burner. And what I realized really quickly was it's a lot more fun to provide solutions to clients that are unique and nobody else has than having to compete with 25 different people trying to sell the same valve to them that 25 other people can sell. So that really got things going in the right direction to try to do very unique things and really try to start positioning ourselves in the marketplace to where we could have a national presence and we could be the company that different companies come to if they want to get into the United States market, especially the water wastewater market, to have a sales force already established and have industry knowledge to where we can kind of bring these things to market quickly and efficiently and have a good understanding of how that happens. And it took literally 10 years. So, what do they say? Overnight success. So we had that overnight success. Yeah. And so now, just in the past year, really, we've landed national contracts with not a manufacturer, but a technology company out of the Netherlands called Queen. We've landed a national contract with our FFRP supplier from out of the country. So, we finally put these two specific systems kind of in place to fit this model, and we're scaling nationally. So that's
Nice.
what's really exciting, because then again, you're diversified, you've got a national presence. That all kind of comes with specific benefits as far as relationships go, and make it a lot easier to grow your business. So
what's it been like building a team now, since you're the owner of the company and you have to represent these, product lines, and you got to outreach, right? You got to get throughout the country. You got to get your name out there. You're bringing on a bunch of team members. I've noticed you've been growing. How's that been, and the labor shortage that we have right now?
Difficult.
Yeah. It's the best way to describe it, right? I guess you look at everybody retiring, right? So I grew up, and you grew up. I'd assume the same. Like, we had a lot of guys in the industry, knew the industry, sewer, water. They knew it. They retired. Like, there's a lot of retired guys now. So how are we going to bring on salespeople that, and just administrative people to build these companies, these infrastructure companies that we need to? I just wanted to know a little bit more about what you're dealing with and your struggles.
The hardest part about it probably is you can't expect everybody to do what you do. If everybody did what I do, what you do, we'd all be business owners and running companies. So you've got to, your expectations have to be reasonable. I try to be very cognizant of, the fact that, people have families, people have commitments, people have a lot of other things in their lives besides just work.
Right.
I've got a couple of key things in my life. One's obviously my wife. If I didn't say my dogs were important as well, she would kill me. So, my wife's important, and my family, but I don't have a lot of kids and other commitments that most people have, as we've talked about before. So I work all the time. Ask anybody on my team, I'm texting them at 9, 10 o'clock at night. You and I are texting at 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
I know.
I just started working with a guy in South Africa, and we're on a 9-hour time difference. So it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I'm sending him messages where it's 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning for him, and he's doing the same to me, like late at night and in the morning. So that's the hardest thing, just having realistic expectations. And
I had to
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and it's just, so that's one thing. You've just got to have realistic expectations. And the other thing too, when you start out and it's just you don't have standard operating procedures in place. You don't have training in place. You don't have onboarding procedures in place. You don't have HR in place. So you don't have any of these kind of, if you look at a big company that's already developed and been around for 100 years, they have all these things.
Right.
I didn't have all these things, and I was, my background is sales and marketing, and that's what I like to do. So I had to try to figure all this stuff out as I went along, and hired people to help me and put the right people in place. But probably the biggest challenge over the past year, once I got some good people and tempered my expectations, and some of them far exceed my expectations. So let's not confuse that, because I've got people that blow my expectations away. But then the hard part became teaching them how to do what I had been successful doing. Mm-hmm. And one of my salesmen in Dallas, Chris MacDonald, he has a great story, because we were traveling around a couple months ago, or maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and we were going to these different meetings and seeing different people. And I was, I'm speaking from 15, 20 years experience doing what I'm doing. I'm the one that developed and introduced all these technologies that we're trying to go out and promote. I'm the one that spent a year or two vetting all these technologies and learning about them. So he's walking out of these meetings just like, how am I ever going to learn how to do what you just did? And it finally, it dawned on me. I said, Chris, you don't need to do what I'm doing. You just need to learn the things that I've learned, and these are the critical pieces that you need to learn to be able to do this however you want to do it. And once I got some good tools in his hands, and I introduced him to things like the AWWA, like M77 manual that has to do with pressure pipe inspections, and there's a new manual being written now There's new standards being written for the liners we sell, which are the FFRP liners. So once I kind of introduced him to some of these industry publications and he started reading them and really understanding everything about what we're trying to do with our specific technologies, the light bulb went off, and he's just been doing fantastic ever since then. But he came out of one meeting where he allowed himself to kind of get backed into a corner with some of his questioning, and he came out and he called me and he's like, what did I do? And I said, you asked the wrong questions. I said, you kind of put it in a position where the answer you got was the answer I would have expected. So you've got to keep from kind of backing him into that corner and asking you that question. And it's just about how you educate the client when you're going through that process and having those conversations and meetings. And so once he kind of got kicked pretty hard coming out of this one meeting and we had a conversation, he's been doing phenomenal. But that was a challenge, figuring out how to teach guys to do what you're doing that comes naturally because you're the one that's spent all the time doing it and developing it.
Yeah, it takes years. And I'm laughing because I've been there. We all been there, right? And it's literally, you're walking into a meeting first time to someone that's been in public works maybe 15, 20 years, been in the ground, digging the trenches, like knows it with the back of their hand. They know everything about their processes and stuff. And if you're inexperienced and you don't read those papers or you don't study the industry and you walk in there to a meeting, it's like they're licking their chops, ready to just destroy you and devour you of what you don't know and what you should know before you walk into that meeting. It's one of those things that a lot of salespeople in this infrastructure industry need to understand. It's like study, research, know your product, know your solution, know how it's going to help them and fix their problems, right? It's, if you don't know that, you're just toast. You really are. So that's exciting. You're mentoring someone and you're educating them on how to go through the sales process. Super important.
Well, we've all been there, right? We all started there. We were all that person. At some point, we were all the person that was in with the senior salesman, and he was just like leading these people down the path to what he wanted to get to. And you're like, how in the world did he do that? Like, how am I ever going to figure out how to do that? And when you first start out in the industry or any industry, you kind of want to kind of parrot or mimic what the other person's doing. But you find out real quickly about 5 minutes into a meeting when you're trying to do that, you're like, wait a minute, that guy didn't say the same thing that this guy said to this guy. Now what do I do? You just kind of around trying to figure it out as you go. So, but no, knowledge and education is the key to everything.
It's huge. Yeah. You got to be loaded with the weapons walking into that meeting. It's like, just know what you're going to pull and always have a tool for every decision or, question you're going to throw out there. Have a response ready because they're going to hit you with something that you might not be ready for. So make sure you're ready to respond accordingly. Now, our industry, go ahead.
The more knowledge you have in the industry too, the easier it is to walk into those meetings just with the expectation that you're simply going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
When you're young, you're going, okay, well, I'm going in to try to sell something or introduce something or do something. But now, 30 years into it, it's like you can just walk in and know you're going to have a good conversation, whatever direction it goes. And you can either lead that conversation or follow the lead of the client and have a lot of good discussions.
You just reminded me of something. Having the knowledge and learning everything and understanding everything, if you walk in with your product as your first, this is how it is and this is our product and this is how it works, and you do not understand your client, or at least ask them questions about their experiences and things like that, learn more about your client or your prospect, you're done if you walk in with your product first and not the questions of learning more about your prospect or your client, right? I can't stand it now where I see people posting on LinkedIn. It's like, our product's the best. It's the greatest thing ever, whatever. I'm just like, okay, what are you trying to solve though? Post something educational of what your product will eventually resolve, right? It's one of those things.
And don't you love it when you see somebody will post something and then somebody will try to hijack their post by putting a comment, you should call me about X, X, and Y product. Oh, yeah. It's like, really? It's like, did somebody
do that? Yeah. learning, and that's interesting because, we're moving. This is a great topic. We're moving from traditional sales, right, to digital sales, where now it's becoming, you have to build your brand online. And I'm trying to get our industry to start moving, and you understand it, because you're always on LinkedIn and you're talking about educating and, bringing solutions to the table and advertising it. And we're still stuck in this traditional phase of like, hey, we got to stop at every city, cold call, and say hi, and then just keep following up. Like every quarter you're stopping into these cities, and we're limiting ourselves. We're limiting ourselves of how many clients we could potentially reach by doing that, right? Because you can only hit so many cities a day, where digital marketing, not digital marketing, but at least this social media outreach that we can build now, we can reach thousands upon thousands of government entities. And I think that's one of the things our industry needs to start learning, is how, like, you and I leverage social media as a way to like leverage our expertise. It's like, I've been here, done that, and this is what I've learned, that kind of stuff. What do you think about how we're moving from traditional to digital, like sales and marketing?
I think you can't ever forget there's a human aspect to it all.
Good point.
So there's, and man, I've got, Jimmy's going to watch this. Don't tell him I said this, but
I love Jimmy. He's old school too. I love it. He's a great salesman.
And what Jimmy is fantastic about is people talk to him because they want to talk to him, not because he's selling them something or he has a solution for them. He's built better relationships in this industry than anybody I know. And yeah. I wish I could do that particular thing half as well as he does, because people answer the call not because they think you're going to sell them something or solve a problem, because they genuinely want to talk to you. And that's why everybody answers the call every single time he calls them, because he's built relationships with everybody he does business with. And yeah. It's not easy. It doesn't come natural to most people. And he's done a really good job of it. And the other thing, like what I like doing and what I think I'm pretty good at, is leveraging other people's knowledge and experience and inviting them to the table. And like I tell people all the time, this, like most things, is a team sport. You're not going to get far by yourself. And, I've got people on my team at CPM Pipelines that I rely on every day and that do a fantastic job. I've got, guys like you, Chad, that we work with and we team with to kind of leverage all of our relationships and contacts and knowledge. And, I try to bring people in. Like I've really started bringing a lot of people into my weekly Teams calls that we do. So, we do a Teams call like every Monday morning. We talk about projects we're working on, people share information. But I've really started reaching out to a lot of the industry experts I know. And some of them, I've just recently met, maybe through a committee or something, and there's things we do that they could use and need, but I don't approach them about that. I just say, I'd really like to have you participate in my weekly Teams call, share your knowledge and information with the people on my team, let them ask questions, and really approach it from a team aspect or a team perspective, and then that we're trying to learn as much or more as we're trying to kind of introduce things to you or quote unquote sell you something. Because again, the more knowledge you have and the more experience you have, the better you're going to be able to bring solutions to the right people and not have to do like traditional like cold calling and things like that. But the digital stuff, it just lets you share your stories and kind of pick out your content. But I think the challenge is you've got to have a plan. If you're just randomly putting posts up and doing things, I think it's helpful, but it's not as effective as if you've got a really good plan built around it. And I think a lot of people in our industry, they're not real marketing heavy or savvy. The consulting companies, they do a great job of it, but they've got huge marketing departments that they specialize in marketing. So they've always done a good job. But if you look at the smaller business owners in our industry, the reps and the smaller contractors and stuff like that, they've traditionally not done as good a job with those types of marketing efforts. So I think things like LinkedIn and even Facebook and I guess Instagram or TikTok or some of these other platforms to some degree, just give you a good platform with a good strategy to kind of tell a story over time.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
if you're not taking advantage of that, you're really missing a huge opportunity, I think. And I've had people in my business in the past say, well, I don't understand LinkedIn and I don't see any value in LinkedIn or whatever it is, but it's because they didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I've connected and gotten leads and contacts, and perfect example. There's a guy that's been following us on the Sewer podcast, Angel,
the round table. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was commenting on it, and he was participating in some things, and then commenting to some of the posts we put up. So I finally pulled up his page and looked at it. And it turns out the guy's got a pretty interesting polymeric grouting system for filling voids and stopping inflow and infiltration, which is something I've got a project with an underground storage tank system that's got a lot of voids around it here in Arizona right now. And I called him yesterday and I said, hey, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing. And he's like, oh, that's exactly what this is for. And we've struggled to get it to the market, and we've been doing it like 4 or 5 years. And I'd really like to kind of have you guys help me get this product to market. But for me, it's potentially something we can take national with our team now, and show him how to get this stuff in front of the right people and have contracts in place, like through your system, procurement, or something like that, to where they can get these things in front of the government buyers and start making progress, because it seems like they've really struggled the past few years to get into the market.
So this is a great segue to our relationships conversations we've had before. So, trying to bring solutions. We've talked about this on the roundtable. We've obviously discussed different ways to approach the market, bring technology solutions to the table, but we have an obstacle in front of us, and it's traditional, right? It's traditional ways of like digging and replacing, for one example, building a bigger wastewater treatment plant, building a bigger water treatment facility, without any kind of understanding of what are, not our solutions, but solutions that are out there that could be more cost effective, right? So there's a barrier to entry, and I want you to kind of talk a little bit more about what we discussed previously and those establishments and the relationships that are built to kind of keep us out. And what do you think about, or let's talk about that a little bit more, because I think that's a huge topic for companies like the Polymer Technologies USA company. They're small, they get a great technology. They're going to get crushed by the engineers that want to dig and replace a pump station. They just want to replace it. They're not going to want to do grouting and whatever their solution is.
And the contractors that are involved in those projects are going to want to dig it up and recompact it and put new backfill in and kind of start all over. But I'm trying to thank you. So,
it's a loaded question.
Well, the establishment. So here's what we all want to do, though, right? We all want to be that establishment. So the question is, because we want to be in the seat where we've been the one to establish the industry. We've been the one to establish the standards. We've been the one to write the specs. And that's really so if you are that establishment, it's fantastic, because you've got this position that's hard to break. Yeah. So the question is, do you try to take a product into a market that's going directly up against the establishment that's there? So valves is a perfect example, right? If you want to start selling valves in the United States, and we work with a company called VSI Solutions out of Georgia, but we're going up against the incumbents that have been there since the early 1900s, and they're the ones who wrote the specs. They're the ones that went to the consultants, back 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago and wrote those specs. And then we're coming in 100 years later and saying, well, can you put me in spec? And they're like, well, why would we do that? We've already got these 4 valves that we've known for 100 years. So do you want to do that? Is that the kind of business you want to have? And that's the kind of business you want to be involved in? Or do you want to take a completely new category like we've done with FFRP, bring it into the United States, introduce it to the United States market, and then be the company that starts developing new, AWWA standards and ASTM standards, and then handwriting your own specification that you're then walking into every consulting office in the country and saying, I'm not asking you to change a spec. I'm asking you to create a new spec with a new category.
Yeah.
Because if it's not there already, they're obviously going to be interested in it. They're going to look at it. They're going to evaluate it. They're still going to ask a lot of questions and do their due diligence, just like I've done over the past 10 years. But now you're in a position to be the establishment with that category. So that's something really exciting about what CPM Pipelines is doing as a company. And as we're growing and expanding nationally, our opportunity to become the establishment when it comes to some of these categories that we're operating in, and to really define what that category looks like and what the standard becomes.
Yeah.
So that's what, you asked me before, I think, what was exciting. That's exciting because those opportunities, and we were in Dallas doing a pressure pipe inspection a couple of weeks ago on a 20-inch raw water line with our new UT technology out of the Netherlands. And I had about 10 people sitting around the table at dinner one night between my team and the Queen team that came in from overseas. And I said, guys, I don't know that you really fully can appreciate or understand what we're doing here, but we have an opportunity to create a category and do things that nobody else is doing in this industry right now. And these opportunities don't come along very often. If you're lucky and you work 80 hours a week for 20 years, you might have this happen once. And I've been fortunate enough to have it happen twice with two of the companies we're partnered with now this last year. And it took a lot of, failures and a lot of trials and a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes. And we finally got ourselves into a position with some key stuff that we can really make an impact in the industry and create our own category and become the establishment. That doesn't happen ever.
I like it.
So
awesome.
That's what's exciting.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to explain it, Chris, because I think there's some confusion. Like we're coming in like bulldozers and trying to disrupt this whole space and take it over or whatever, right? I mean, we're not. We're just bringing a solution to the table that makes things more cost effective for the buyer, and it simplifies it versus spending extra couple millions of dollars by digging and replacing something that we can just line it, right? Or grout it or whatever, right? It's one of those things where we're bringing more solutions to the table. So that's a great way to explain it. So as we wrap things up here, we're a little over time. What are some of the future things that CPM Pipelines plans on doing? Are you planning on hiring more people? What is your future?
So this past year, I spent about 120 nights in hotels, kind of getting my own team up to speed. So I've got a new rep coming on board in the Northwest. I've got some new reps coming on board in the Northeast. I've got a rep to train all up and down the Midwest, Mid-South. I've got a guy in Chicago that needs some more training because he's going to kill it for me this year.
Yeah.
But, so that's, he's got some other things going on, like some podcasts and
okay. Yeah. Hey, I'm in. I love it. So I'm talking about your technology for sure to my connections.
But that's what the next year is going to look like. We're going to try to get these new reps on board and up to speed and trained with the pressure pipe inspection, the pressure pipe rehab solutions, and just start growing this thing nationally. I'm looking to possibly put a spot in the Midwest that we could have as a distribution point. So there's a lot going on. I don't want to say too much because I don't know who's going to be listening or watching, but we've got a lot of big plans for 2023. We've got a huge backlog on the board.
Nice.
We've got just projects that are out there that we've talked to clients about that. We probably, when we identify a project with a client, we probably have 90 to 95% of those projects come in. And we've got a lot of projects kind of on the board right now that we're working on that will likely come in 2023, which is going to give us a huge opportunity to continue to invest in locations and more importantly, people. And the team, and I always like the saying about investing in people, right? And they say, well, should we spend the money or train the person or do, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's something to the effect of, if what if we don't spend the money and we don't invest in our people and they stay? You got to worry about like investing in them and them leaving, but more importantly, what if you don't invest in them and they stay? So, and that's what I encourage, like all my team, like, is just to take the lead. They always come to me and like, what do you want to do? It's like, what do you want to do? Like, why don't you tell me? You take the lead. You come up with some ideas. You come up with some plans. So we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep investing in our team. We're going to keep investing in the business, and we're going to keep growing the business. And we're going to create a couple of categories in this industry that we're going to be the incumbent. And we're going to become the establishment, and everybody's going to talk about me in 10 years about like, how come I can't break into this industry? And it's going to be like, well, we've been working at this like 25 years, and sorry, but it was hard for us to get to this point, and it's going to be even harder for you to knock us out of this position because of the work we've put in.
Well, it's great things happening in the CPM pipelines. The culture obviously is great. You're giving your employees the freedom to make decisions and choices, and to a degree. And you're innovating the industry. So you're doing great things, Chris. And I truly appreciate you spending the time to join me on the podcast, and look forward to the next conversations, especially on the sewer roundtable. That's always been intriguing to hear the different perspectives out there. And what are the ways that someone could get a hold of you or your team?
Follow us on our LinkedIn page, CPM Pipelines on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. All my contacts information is on there. So it's a really easy place to find us. Or, of course, our website has a lot of the new technologies and things we're doing right now, which is cpmpipelines.com.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and look forward to the next one.
All right. Thanks, Chad. Have a great holiday.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.